Today I'm going to install my Raxiom 3-inch LED lights that I got from Extreme Terrain. I decided to mount my lights on the A-pillar here by the windshield. So I had to get some special mounts for the lights, which I have right here, and the bolts and washers necessary, and my wires, and the tools needed for this. And this, you're going to need a Torx wrench set. And when I bought my 2015 Rubicon, it came with this special Jeep Torx wrench set. This wrench set was specifically designed to take off the doors of the Rubicon and the top, which I just have a soft top, so I don't need it. But it also works with these bolts here. So I'm going to use the T40 to remove the bolts. Okay, so once the bolts are removed, the next step is to put in the mounts. First, you want to make sure you have a rubber padding that will go between the mount and the paint so you don't scratch the paint. And you would reuse the previous bolts that you took out. Another good idea before you put the bolts back in is to put some blue threadlocker on the bolt. This will prevent the bolt from rattling out. And I will do the same for the second bolt. My wrench didn't work, so now I have a Torx screwdriver to fit in there to tighten it. There we go. Okay, so the next step is to remove the screws on the hood vent. This is where we will be hiding the wires for the lights. Okay, so I seem to have a little problem here. The hole on the mount is just slightly bigger than the bolt. So now I'm going to have to go find a washer. And I'm going to go sneak into my husband's toolkit to see if he has any washers so I don't have to go to Home Depot, but don't tell him. Okay, here I am in my husband's toolkit, and I'm going to raid some of these washers. Let's see if I can find what I need. This probably will work. I'm going to need at least 2. So just don't tell him. Okay, so I'm back here at my Rubicon, and I have the washer I need to install my lights on the light mounts. I put the bolt through, and I put a little washer up top there, and I mount the light. Then I'll put this washer on. And I'm going to add a little thread locker to this bolt too, so they don't rattle loose.
You did put Loctite on there, right?
Yep.
Good.
There.
There you go.
Now the next step is to hide the wire underneath the hood vent. Now, I'm probably going to have to take off the windshield wiper so I can pull this up to get it under there. And maybe not. So then the next step is, I did not have to remove the windshield washer. The next step is to put the screws back in. Okay, that's all done. So I have the screws from the hood vent removed, and I don't want to lose them, so my little trick, which you guys probably already know, is I like to put them in my pocket so I don't lose them. Okay, so the first light is mounted, and I'm getting ready to do the second light mount. Now, what did I learn from the first light mount? That I needed a few extra tools than I thought I would need. I needed 2 of these 14mm wrenches because of the tight fit underneath the light the light mount. And I also needed this torque screw because one of the second bolts on the light mount is kind of a tight fit, and the ratchet that Jeep provides, or any ratchets that I would guess wouldn't work. So now the next step is to run the wiring, and I hate to admit this, but this is the first time I've been under the hood of my Jeep. So this is a whole new experience for me, so let's see if I can do it. First, I need to attach the wires from the light to each other, and then that wire needs to be attached to the wire harness. Not very strong. Oh, I did it. Yay! It's the first time I've ever done that. Now I'm going to solder the light wires so I can hook them up to the wire harness. So I'm going to first tin my tip. I put the heat shrink wrap on it, and now I'm going to shrink it onto the wire. And now just a little bit of liquid tape to make sure there's no way any water or corrosion is going to get into these wires. It may be a little overkill, but better safe than sorry. Now I have my first light, my driver's side light, hooked up to 2 wires, and I strung those wires through the hood, which I am now hooking those 2 wires up to the passenger side light and the wiring kit that I received. I'm soldering these 3 wires together, and I hid them underneath the vent. Now the wiring kit also came with a switch. That switch wire is hooked in to the wiring kit. Okay, so I'm having a real difficult time trying to find the firewall. I've been looking all over, inside, outside. There's supposedly some hole that goes from the inside to the outside of the Jeep. So I went online and I asked my Jeep friends, which I love this Jeep community. They said that I needed to remove the passenger side panel. So that's exactly what I did. And there is the foam hole. Now I just need to poke through it with a wire hanger. So that's the next step. Okay, so I had to cut the wires because the plug was too big to fit through this hole. But we used a wire fisher, and we taped the lights wires to the wire fisher, and it took us quite a bit to pull it through, and it's still, now we'll just pull it through. Yay, I did it! It took me about, I don't know, 20 tries going in and out of this hole, but finally it made it through. Because it's kind of a small hole, but it worked. So now the next step. So I had to cut my plug wire to be able to fit it through the firewall. So now I need to resolder the wires. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the heat shrink tubing on all my wires first. That way, once they're soldered together, I can heat shrink them, because once they're soldered together, you can't get the tubing on because both ends are connected. I've seen some people put heavy tools on the wires to hold them down, but I've taped them because my space is limited because my wire is hooked into the Jeep. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to twist each end of the wire. So then I will make an X, and then I will twist one end around the wire so it's nice and tight. And then I'll do the other end. And then I have my soldering iron, which has been heating up, and my wet cloth, and my rosin soldering. So, first thing you need to do is tin the tip. And then I'm going to heat the wire. And now we're going to heat shrink. I'm going to do the black one first. And I do not have a heat gun, so I'm going to use a flame. As an extra security measure, just for me to be on the safe side, I'm going to use some liquid tape to make sure all the ends are sealed. And you just kind of dab it on. I've just reattached all the wires, and I'm now going to snake it under my passenger side, and then I will put the panel back on, and then we should be good to go. Once the cable was run through the firewall and hooked to the switch, I then hooked up the two cables to the battery. All my cables are hooked together, they're soldered, they're heat shrunk. I put a little liquid tape on just for extra precautions, and even for more extra precautions, I taped up some of the wires with this Super 33 Plus vinyl electric tape. So now we're gonna turn on the lights to see if everything I did worked. The first time I hooked the wires together, I didn't do it properly. I did it like you would do inside a house. And you need to be a little safer when you're wiring to your Jeep, because first of all, you don't want your Jeep to start on fire. And second of all, there's a lot of water and salt and corrosion that could get to these wires. So better safe than sorry. So I kind of went the extra mile with the extra liquid tape and the tape, but I think all in all, my wires should be pretty safe. Knock on wood. Now with all this extra cable and wires and stuff, you kind of just have to hide it down in your Jeep and secure it with some cable ties, and all will be good. Here is my Jeep. First we're going to turn on the headlights, now the fog lights, and now my new Raxiom lights.